Hello, welcome everyone to this channel. My name is Janet. I'm working through the King James's Bible. Today we are in the book of Samuel and we're working from chapter 18 to 20 today. So I'm covering a summary of these chapters, not the full intricate details. Those links are under this video if you want to read through that information. So if you're ready to hear these summaries, then we'll begin. Now, yesterday's video we saw the great triumphant battle between David and Goliath, and David has won that battle victoriously. So in chapter 18, we start this chapter with David beginning to befriend Saul's son, Jonathan. Obviously, Jonathan's a really great warrior. He's been out to fight in battles and led the way, so they have a lot in common, and they're both of the same age, so they start to become friends. And King Saul now has David stay alongside him permanently. He doesn't allow him to go back to his father Jesse to look after the sheep. That has stopped. And Jonathan and David make a covenant together between each other. Now David is given a high rank in Saul's army. He's given that to him for his victory over Goliath, and the army are so pleased to have him there. They are constantly praising him and saying how great he is. And this starts to make Saul a bit jealous. Now Saul's jealousy starts to increase, so much so that this spirit comes over him. Obviously the spirit of jealousy, it's starting to rise in him. And David is there alongside him playing the harp to keep his heart happy. That's what he was there to do, remember, initially. But this jealousy of Saul makes him throw a spear at David twice, and twice David manages to dart out the way and escape. Now after Saul's done this, he becomes fearful of David because he knows the Lord has left him now and he's with David. Saul's next move is to put David in charge of 1,000 of his men in the army. And David takes on this challenge and he just makes a success of it because he's got the Lord on his side. So he leads the campaigns of these military men and things are going really well for him. But Saul's fear and jealousy starts to rise. So even with this going on in Saul, he decides to offer his oldest daughter to David to marry. And he does this because he wants David to go into war with the Philistines. He wants him to lead the battle. And in doing this, Saul's hope is that eventually David will be killed on the battlefield. He thinks the Philistines will eventually strike him down. Now this offer of marriage to David, he doesn't accept because he doesn't feel he's worthy to take on Saul's oldest daughter. So she then marries somebody else. But Saul's daughter Michal loves David, and this pleases Saul. But David's still a bit hesitant. Now if David is to marry Michal, Saul says that he must first go out and get the foreskin of 100 Philistines. So David takes on this challenge, and he not only comes back with 100, he comes back with double that, 200 foreskins, which then means that Michal and David can be married. So as David continues his successes, it does not appease Saul at all. He just starts getting more and more jealous as we close this chapter. So we begin chapter 19 with Saul's plan to kill David. He's got to a place now with his jealousy that he's out and out going to kill him. So he calls forth his son, Jonathan, and some other men to carry this out for him. But because Jonathan is good friends with David, he doesn't want him to be killed, so he tells David of his father's intentions. And Jonathan then goes to his father and tells him, you don't do this, he's a good man. David kind of convinces him eventually not to kill David. And Saul doesn't. Saul listens to his son and he chooses not to kill him. And so things go back to normal for a while. So then war breaks out with the Philistines. But again, David is so successful when he goes into battle and the Philistines flee the land. And the more successful David gets, the more Saul's jealousy just rises. So as David is alongside him playing a song, he throws a spear at him again and tries to kill him. This time, David manages again to get out of the way of that and he flees the camp. So David returns home to his wife Michal and he stays there. And obviously Saul sends his men to capture him there. So the men head over there, but his wife helps David escape. And he does. He goes towards Samuel, who lives in Ramah, and he tells him all about what's happened, what is going on. Now, while he's there, someone tells Saul that's where David has gone. So Saul sends his men to get him at Ramah. Now there was a company of prophets, and they were prophesying. When Saul's men came upon Samuel and David, the Spirit of God comes over them. They go back to Saul. So he sends another group back, and the same thing happens to them. They come back. So Saul eventually goes himself, and then the Spirit of the Lord comes over him, and he takes off all his royal clothing, and he joins the prophets. And this is where we close chapter 19. So the Lord is working there as this like protection around David so he won't be killed. So we begin chapter 20 where David is in fear of Saul's pursuit to kill him. And he goes to his son Jonathan and he asks, why? Why does your father want to kill me? And Jonathan says, he doesn't want to kill you. I've spoken to him. You know, he doesn't want to do this. And he said, look, he's not going to tell you. He knows we're friends now. He's not going to tell you of his intentions to kill me. And Jonathan is on David's side and he just wants to help. So they make a plan together and David says, look, I'm to have dinner with your father at the festival. There's a festival coming up and it's tomorrow night. But I'm not going to attend. Instead, I'm going to go into the field. I'm going to stay there overnight. Now, what he wants Jonathan to do is to tell his father that he's had to go to Bethlehem for a sacrifice. But instead, he's going to go out to the field and he's going to stay there until the next day. Now, the reason David does this is he says, if Saul hears this news and he's okay about me being in Bethlehem, then great, he doesn't want to kill me. But if he gets angry and enraged, then that is a clear sign that he still wants to kill me. And David is convinced that he still wants to kill him. So they both go out to the field. And Jonathan agrees to this plan. They pledge their friendship, and Jonathan says, this is how he's going to let him know what the answer is. He says, I want you to go and wait by the stone called Ezel. And he's going to shoot an arrow out towards the stone. Now, if the arrow goes towards one side of the stone and he gets his boy to go and collect it, that means he's safe. But if he shoots the arrow and it goes beyond the stone, that means he is in danger. So the festival begins. And Saul thinks at first that, So the festival begins. And first Saul thinks David must be unclean for the ritual. So the festival begins, and Saul thinks David mustn't be there because he must be unclean for the ritual. But then the second day of the festival, he asks his son, where is David? Where's he at? And then Jonathan explains, oh, I had to go to Bethlehem. He's got a sacrifice there, so I told him he could go. And Saul gets so angry. He's like, what? And then he becomes so enraged that he says, right, David has to be killed. And Jonathan is like, what? Why? And he's like, for him to like even dispute that, he ends up throwing a spear at his son. And so that next morning, Jonathan goes out, gets his arrow, and he shoots an arrow beyond the stone, and the young man he tells to go and get the arrows. And once he's gone, David appears and Jonathan says, you are in danger, it's true, my father does want to kill you. And they are so upset because they've got such a strong friendship. They kiss and like embrace, they cry, and then Jonathan sends David on his way to go into a safe place. And that closes our chapter 20. So that is our 3 chapters today. And we see clearly just how destructive jealousy can be. Let it be a warning to us all, to not let jealousy take over, because it can lead us down really bad paths. So I hope you've enjoyed these 3 chapters, and I will return tomorrow with more within this book of Samuel. See you all soon. Take care. Bye.